Hi, how's it going? Yes, I know it's been a long time. We haven't talked about the Curse of Strahd for a chunk of time. It must be months, almost half a year now. I have been struggling with that topic, but I've decided to collect some of the more common problems that people have with the Curse of Strahd and sort of answer those questions as best I can. And this is what this video is all about. So you will let me know if there's any problems with the sound. I'm just going to make it really clear right now. I will put the start time for this video down in the description so that you can skip past all of my rambling and setup, which I will certainly do. And hey, when I say there are problems with the Curse of Strahd, honestly, the problem, every time I put a title up there, people read too much into it. So we'll see. I will answer that stuff. Now, you won't be able to access my live stream because this is a live stream right now. Later on, if you decide to leave, unless you have subscribed, hit the bell button and turned on all notifications. You have to make sure you get all of the notifications turned on. Otherwise, you can't access it. Patrons can always access my live streams because I put it on my Patreon page. Let me know if there's any problems with the sound and I'll adjust my magic sock. Okay, so that's the basics in terms of that. There's a lot of material. I can tell you now I have at least 4 pages of notes. I tried to cut it down. I am struggling to sort of make it smaller. So this is really supposed to be I guess a sort of a general overview of some of the issues you might come across. Okay, I have my notes, which I will read from. So if you haven't been part of my live streams, I read from my notes, but I will present images rather than my face because it just makes it easier for me to present everything. And then once I've done my presentation, we will go back to the webcam. You will see my face and I will answer as many questions as I possibly can. And for those of you who are here and really have been wanting me to do more Curse of Strahd, and I said I would, I'm probably going to do what I did with the Lost Mod of Phandelver, which means that's a Q&A or questions and answers once a month for the Curse of Strahd. Very sort of general questions and answers. I know that's something that people probably want. Okay, but that's not the topic for today. We're actually going to run over some specifics. Okay, right, grab a drink, get comfortable, make yourself at home, settle down, because we're going to talk about one of the best Dungeons & Dragons adventures, in my opinion. That doesn't mean there aren't problems. Okay, I hope you are comfortable. Settle in for the ride. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons because I always do talk about Dungeons & Dragons. One of my favourite topics. We're going to talk about the problems with the Curse of Strahd. Are there problems in the Curse of Strahd? Well, yes and no. This is a Dungeon Master guide. So if you are playing in the Curse of Strahd as a character, please go and watch my video on the Player's Guide for Curse of Strahd. Don't watch this video because there will be spoilers sitting in here somewhere that will give away stuff that you probably should not know about. Here are some common Dungeon Master issues or problems, and my intention with this video is to cover quite a lot of material, which means the quick solution that I provide you with isn't going to work for everybody. And yes, that means you may need more information later on to be able to deal with those issues. So let's start with issue number 1. And that is the Curse of Strahd is too deadly and causes lots of character deaths. And yes, Curse of Strahd can do that. Here's my problem when people say this. This is not a failure by the Dungeon Master in running the Curse of Strahd. It is not a failure of the adventure. The problem is, it's a failure of the player's understanding of the adventure. It doesn't always come because they've been playing lots of video games. It might simply be because they don't understand that they're not playing vanilla Dungeons & Dragons anymore. They're playing horror. They're playing the Curse of Strahd, which is actually quite a difficult adventure. In fact, it's very difficult as an adventure. And on top of that, if they are a beginner, they're not going to really understand there are other things they can do rather than just stay there and fight stuff. So my advice to you when dealing with the Curse of Strahd is too hard or too difficult or there's too many character deaths is tell your players it's a very hard adventure and they need to be careful because if they do that, That will make a lot of difference. It makes all the difference, in fact. Okay, problem number 2. Strahd can't really be destroyed permanently. Yes, if you look in the back of the adventure, you will see a section that talks about what happens when the adventure is completed and Strahd has been destroyed, and then says about 3 months later, Strahd is resurrected and comes back. Now, why? This is because of the dark gods or the dark lords that look over and sort of look after Barovia and ensure that Strahd stays where he is. So why is this a problem? Okay, it's not really a good adventure for people to play if they don't understand what the goal is. Okay, the goal is not really to destroy Strahd. That might seem like the goal. The actual goal for this adventure is to escape Barovia, and the only way to do that is to destroy Strahd. That's the goal. That doesn't mean you need to permanently destroy Strahd. The other thing I would like to point out is don't tell your players that 3 months later after they have defeated Strahd that he comes back. Okay, just ignore that. Don't say anything about that. You don't have to mention it, and it will not be an issue. Or you can decide to change the final outcome for the adventure Curse of Strahd and have Strahd permanently destroyed if you really wanted to. So it's not a difficult issue to deal with, honestly. Okay, number 3. Escaping the death house is very hard. Now, I can guarantee you that somebody will come across this issue and it's a legitimate issue because some of the mechanics that are written into the adventure are quite difficult for a low-level character to deal with. And yes, it is supposedly designed for a low-level character. But here's the thing I would like to point out. Players don't have to enter the death house. You as a dungeon master don't have to force them into the house with the mist. The players don't have to complete everything in the death house. They could go in and decide it is time to leave. The only thing stopping them is the death house, and who controls the death house? You do. The dungeon master can adjust all of the house responses on the fly based on the party's progress and the decisions that they make. Because the logical thing to do for any kind of player when they see this situation is probably never to go inside the death house. I honestly don't see that as a problem. I know you might think, well, okay, now I've got to go and prepare something else, but they don't actually have to participate in the death house. You can also just eliminate the death house completely. Okay, number 4. The death house can't be destroyed permanently. It's indestructible. Now, this is done deliberately. It's done by design to stop your players using their characters to solve all of their problems with fire. If they can't deal with the problem, they burn it down. So part of that is to deal with that issue and also to give the house a terrifying supernatural feel. Now, how do you make it have a supernatural feel? You try to bring it to life and make it indestructible so that even if they burn the thing down and they walk past it a few days later, they see it's still there. Of course, what is it trying to do? What are the designers trying to actually impart to you? The message for the players is this. The message is from the death house. Don't return or mess with me if you escape. That is the message. Okay, that's quite scary. So even if the players never really have much to do with the house and they were to just burn the thing down and never enter it and it suddenly reappears, that there is terrifying in terms of any kind of aspect to your adventure. Okay, problem number 5. The Wizard of Wines has a magic gem seed with no location mentioned in the book. It's missing. There is 3 of them. And we know where 2 of them are, but the 3rd seed's location is unknown. But it's also likely known by Strahd. If you think about it, probably Strahd knows where everything is. How do you deal with this? The Dungeon Master is expected to fill in the gaps by design, or decide to exclude it because you don't actually need the 3rd seed to complete the adventure quest for that section. Okay, you can have just 2 seeds. Okay, that would be fine. You do not need to have all 3. It would be nice, but you don't have to have all 3. So an easy fix and really not a big problem. Number 6, the map of Castle Ravenloft is confusing. Yeah, it is confusing. It's isometric. It's very, very involved. There are multiple levels. As a dungeon master, you will need to take some time to study the map so you know how it works, simply because the stairs going up and down can get you lost. Players should feel confused when they try to navigate through the castle. The map could also be given to the players if you like. Now, you could do this if they find the castle model in the Amber Temple. There's a location in the Curse of Strahd called the Amber Temple, and if they go into the right location, they will find a full-fledged model of Castle Ravenloft, which they could, of course, just sketch down and draw a diagram of, and that would allow you to just give them the map, including all the secret doors and stuff like that, so you don't have to worry about all of that sort of stuff. Of course, that doesn't work if they go into Castle Ravenloft before going to the Amber Temple, and considering the Amber Temple is quite a dangerous location, you probably find you will still have to deal with some of the aspects of Castle Ravenloft, so a bit of study on your part is required. Okay, number 7. The player's characters can't fight everything. Why is that? Why can't they fight everything? Combat encounters range from easy right through to deadly, and I mean very, very deadly, where not just one character might die, but the entire party might get wiped out. I will say it now, you do not need to adjust things as a dungeon master. One of the things about the Curse of Strahd is the correct decision to make is often made before combat ever occurs. Players are going to be required to assess a situation and then decide if battle is the right decision. If battle is not the right decision, they should run away. That doesn't mean they can't come back later on and stomple over that particular combat encounter, because they can. As they level up and power up, they should be able to do that. Newer players should be educated. I don't like the idea of new players playing in the Curse of Strahd. I think it's a very bad idea, but if you're going to do it, you need to educate them on fleeing combat. Now, if they decide to flee combat and you chase them down and kill their characters anyway, what have you taught them? You've taught them that fleeing combat does not work. Otherwise, you need to educate them about how to retreat correctly. That means not just running away, but falling back to a safe location. So that means you don't just run away and do no attacks. That means you need to decide when is the right time to actually flee. And I know a few dungeon masters are thinking, well, why am I having to explain this to the players? If you are dealing with new players, yes, you will have to explain it to them. Experienced players should already understand the concepts of fleeing and retreating from combat. If they haven't figured that out, they're probably not experienced players. Okay, so that's the combat section. Okay, problem number 8. The adventure is hard to play with a small group. And a small group in the Curse of Strahd is not a group of 1, 2, or 3 players. Frankly, anything less than 5 is a small group. So you can't really get away with just having 3 or 4 players and think you have a big enough group to deal with the Curse of Strahd, because as I said, it can take out an entire party, not just a couple of characters. So what do? You increase the party size to 5+ players. I would say on the heavy end of 6 is a better idea, but between 5 upward players is the best idea. If you can't do that, otherwise you're going to fall back on the other tactics that I've always talked about, and that is go with giving your players animal companions, a hireling or sellswords, or giving them multiple characters to run, because they need to have enough people or enough individuals in their party to deal with characters that go down, still have somebody fighting, and still allow somebody else to do some healing to get those who are down back up on their feet, Also to deal with resurrecting characters when characters die, stuff like that. So that's problem number 8 in terms of small groups. And I've done a video on how to deal with small groups. It won't completely apply to the Curse of Strahd because the problems in the Curse of Strahd are a little bit more significant. Okay, problem number 9. Mordenkainen, the very high-level powerful wizard, is in this adventure and could easily overshadow the characters or make the adventure a lot easier if they enlist him as an ally. Okay, legitimate problem. We seem to think it's a legitimate problem, but here we go. All you need to do is remove Mordenkainen from the adventure. He is described or characterized as the Mad Mage in the adventure. You don't even have to have the characters meet him. Mordenkainen, or the Mad Mage, can still be in the adventure, but never actually comes in contact with your player's characters. The wizard has also lost his memory and has no spellbook. Therefore, he's not really a problem unless they can get him a new spellbook. And he has to actually, it can't be just anybody's spellbook. He has to write those spells into the spellbook. So he needs something he can copy. He'll require time to do that. Plus, they have to be able to figure out that they are dealing, the Mad Mage is in fact Mordenkainen, and that he's lost his memory. All those things actually don't make it that likely that they will have Mordenkainen as an ally in the adventure. Problem number 10. The adventure is a sandbox, which means players can go anywhere or nowhere. Okay, so here's the simple way to deal with that. Give the players a really strong beginning adventure hook. And I would suggest, because I've already done a video on adventure hooks for the Curse of Strahd, look at something like tracking down werewolves that are abducting children. It's a really strong hook. So it doesn't matter whether they are in Faerun, it doesn't matter if in the Forgotten Realms or some other world or your own homebrew world, and then they go to Barovia. The ultimate goal that they start with is hunting down the werewolves and rescuing the children. And so you don't have to worry about steering them around. They're going to be going and exploring and trying to find those werewolves. Allow the players to make mistakes and determine their own goals, because they will determine their own goals once they get exposed to Barovia and the Curse of Strahd. Once they get a bit of information behind them, they'll understand what's going on. You do not have to hold their hand and guide the players the whole time to try and escape Barovia. You may have to do that at some point, but you don't have to do it all the time. So yet again, not really a problem as far as I'm concerned. Okay, number 11. Players' characters at higher levels stop being scared, or it's reduced. The fear factor and the difficulty that they have to deal with that they had at low level diminishes as they grow in power. Yeah, well, we kind of figured that might happen. The characters should not always be on high alert throughout all the levels. As they level up, they should become better at doing things. Dungeon Masters, the issue here is Dungeon Masters need to accept that players' characters will eventually collect enough information, enough allies hopefully, enough magic items, and enough skills and power to confront their final battles with confidence and with success. They cannot always be on high alert. You do need to allow them to finally start succeeding, because they will fail at the very beginning of the adventure quite a lot. But they shouldn't consistently fail right through all the different levels. Okay, problem number 12. What is stopping Strahd from taking Irena straight away? As soon as the players come into the story, Strahd has already bitten Irena. Why does Strahd not just take her and turn her into a vampire straight away, and the players really can't do very much of anything? Here's my rationale, and there are actually multiple rationales, but I'm only going to give you about 3. Strahd's arrogance leads him to believe that Irena can't escape him anyway. He's very arrogant, he would believe this. Strahd's currently distracted by the player's character's party. This new party of individuals has come into Barovia, and that's his new plaything, so he's paying more attention to them than he is to Irena, because, as I said, Irena can't escape. He's just too good. Strahd wants Irena to willingly come to him, not to be forced. Although he's not going to give her many options, he's going to cut off all the options that she has till she finally resigns to the fact that she must go to him. This is the delusion that Strahd has come to. That doesn't mean that Irena will ever do that, but Strahd isn't smart enough, unfortunately, to figure that out. There are weaknesses to the character. He's a very smart individual, but one of the things is he always thinks he's better than everybody else, and that can be a problem for him. Okay, problem number 13. It's a very hard adventure to run as a dungeon master. Yep, that's right. It's a very hard adventure to run as a dungeon master. It's not a beginner dungeon master adventure. And I cannot stress this enough. I know it's a really good adventure. It's got a good review. People always say good things about it. Very rarely does somebody say Curse of Strahd is a bad adventure. But here's the problem. It is not designed for somebody who's just starting out as a dungeon master. Okay? Lost Mine of Phandelver, Dragon of Icespire Peak, yeah, kind of. They are designed for Dungeons & Dragons 5e by Wizards of the Coast for beginners. But the Curse of Strahd is not. The Curse of Strahd is an expansion of the advanced Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft adventure. Now, I just said advanced Dungeons & Dragons, not basic Dungeons & Dragons, but we're going back quite some time, okay? You had advanced rules and you had basic rules. You had basic adventures and you had advanced adventures. And Ravenloft is one of the more difficult adventures to actually play through. Every aspect of this adventure presents a challenge, not just for players, but also every factor, every conceivable possibility that a dungeon master might have to work their way through. Every problem you can imagine will rear its head in the Curse of Strahd. It will test your mettle. That's just the nature of the adventure. So not really a beginner dungeon master adventure. Now I know I haven't answered all these questions in a lot of detail. I've tried to give you a pretty quick overview of each one of them. So it's up to you, since you are the one who needs the help, or the individuals who are looking for more information on these topics. You need to highlight to me which ones you need more information on. That's what this video is all about. If you let me know, I will make a more detailed video on the aspect you need more information on. Now, if you like this video, great. I have a series of videos for the Curse of Strahd. You're welcome to go and check those out. I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters on every aspect of Dungeons & Dragons 5e and Dungeons & Dragons in general. You're welcome to go and check those out as well. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing videos like this, well, guess what? You can do that by going to my Patreon page. I have a Patreon page where you get access to the written notes for all of my videos and the live streams, so you don't have to worry about doing all the other bits and pieces. I also have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon. Where you buy stuff online, I get a small commission. I have a merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos. You can just watch my videos, that's fine too, not an issue. I love that when people watch my videos. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, all right, we're back. So this is your opportunity. For those of you who are here, this is your time, since I've made it my time available for you for this very purpose, and since we will be doing a monthly Curse of Strahd Q&A, or questions and answers for those people who are having trouble with the adventure. That means near the end of every month, I will do a Q&A, probably not this month because we're kind of already at the end of the July as it is, but the following month in August, at the end of that month, we'll do another Q&A or questions and answers on the Curse of Strahd. I need you, the people who are watching the video, to actually highlight to me either in the live chat now or later on in the comments section the things that you need assistance with, and I will do my best to work my way through them, if I am able to do so. Let's see if my eyes are any good. Okay, my eyes aren't so great today. The glasses are in fact working. Amazing. Okay, so let's work our way through here as fast as I possibly can. Hi Sam, how's it going? Fred Hubbers here. Now I'll be very interested to see what Fred has to say. Main problem with the Curse of Strahd in 5e, they tried to make a level 5 to 7. Yeah, see, because Fred will have probably run Ravenloft, and I've run Ravenloft too, so I know what he's talking about. At the start, campaign adventure into something that DMs are putting level 1 characters through. This is a broken adventure. Yeah, the idea of throwing out a whole lot of stuff for your players to work through. Now, remember, Ravenloft is only Castle Ravenloft, and the Curse of Strahd is much more than just that, okay? That means there's a lot more there. So that means there should be a lot of things that the players can deal with. They do not need to go to the castle straight away. In fact, my group did not go to the castle straight away. They stayed well away from it. I brought Strahd to them, okay? That's how I scared the bejesus out of them. But you are right, Fred. And Death House, which is supposedly for levels 1 to 3, is quite a difficult adventure if you are expecting to sort of not have problems. You actually have to think very carefully about how you're dealing with this issue. And a small group can't do that. You need a big group, and even a big group will have problems, okay? So I totally understand, which means normally the advice is, if you're not going to run the Death House, is that you start your characters at level 3 or 4 and you work your way through. Now, even at level 3 or 4, you're going to struggle with some of the stuff that's in there. And that's because you can go anywhere in the adventure. Anywhere. And you don't, as a Dungeon Master, necessarily have to drive them. But you, like I said, if you give them the right seed to start with, that will help. Okay. Mikey, how's it going, Mikey G? Hi, Tom from Prince Edward Island. Prince Edward Island. You'll have to explain to me, Mikey, where Prince Edward Island is. It sounds interesting. I feel like it's Prince Edward Island is sort of like the name you would want to put into your own Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Christian, how's it going, Christian? Just started Strahd, had my first session last week. How'd it go, Christian? Let me know. If there are any problems, this is the time to ask me, okay? Joseph, how's it going? It's going all right so far, Joseph. Rich Turd? Really? Okay. Hopefully I got the right and the pronunciation of the name right, but really? Thanks for doing this. I've been running, what's that? MOP, and was thinking of doing Curse of Strahd next. Now, MOP, what's he talking about? MOP. I think you mean Lost Mine of Phandelver. See, this is one of the things I come across. Oscar. Now, for those of you who are not aware, Oscar is in the room. I know Oscar has run the Curse of Strahd more times than I can count. He probably knows more about the Curse of Strahd than I could ever possibly know, and yet I'm the one making the video, okay? But the chances are that Oscar ain't going to be making videos for you. So if you have specific questions, chances are Oscar has a solution for that. I know that. It's been a while, Oscar. How's it going? I recommend finding a copy of the original Advanced Dungeons & Dragons version of Ravenloft and taking notes and comparing with the Curse of Strahd adventure. Actually, that's exactly what I did. As it happens, because I actually ran Ravenloft before I ran Curse of Strahd. And I used the Dungeons & Dragons 5e rules when I ran the Curse of Ravenloft. And then I left a bit of time between that before I ran the Curse of Strahd, because the Curse of Strahd really does test you. It really does take you to your limit. I meant Fred. You meant Fred. Okay, I got it. You meant Fred. Got it, Mikey. Raphael, how's it going? Isn't Tomb of Annihilation also a deadly adventure? Yes, it is. So, the Tomb of Horrors is a very difficult puzzle adventure, and I have issues with the Tomb of Horrors, which I'm not going to discuss in detail today. And then the Tomb of Annihilation is taking that idea, the Tomb of Horrors, to another level. Now, the problem with doing that is if you have a look at how the adventure is structured, it means that players have to make the correct decision before they do something, because in some cases there's no dice roll to determine the outcome. The outcome is determined based on the player's choice. This is often how Gary Gygax would structure some of his more advanced adventures for his own home group, where you had to make good decisions to begin with, and there was no dice roll involved because the outcome was already determined based on the decision you made. I do not like the Tomb of Annihilation because it has that aspect to the adventure, and I know that I do not have players who could cope with that. If I had people who understood that concept, then I would be able to run it without having to change quite a bit of it. But you will find that a very difficult adventure. Hi, how's it going, Matt? What's this, Raphael? Nods. The DM can say Strahd got, what's that? Perma dead, even if the adventure says he comes back. Exactly. Yeah. And even if Strahd does return, the players don't ever need to know. One of the mistakes I made when I ran the Curse of Strahd, and I had a really good bunch of people with me, is I then revealed, because one of the players, and this is another problem in itself, but they're probably only ever going to apply to me, I had one of my players who were trying to replace Strahd. They wanted to defeat Strahd and then be the replacement for Strahd in Barovia. And I was not allowing him to do that because he was pushing too hard. And I thought it was unreasonable. So I had Strahd return, and I discussed that with him, and I had everybody else at the table. Now for him, he wasn't happy because he hadn't been able to replace Strahd as the ruler or lord of Barovia, and the players were like, oh, so after all of that, Strahd is still alive. He returned 3 months later. And they're like, well, it kind of makes sense, but I don't like it. So don't tell the players that Strahd returns. It's an easy way to say nothing. And if somebody in your group decides they want to try to replace Strahd, just end the story. Don't go any further with it. Okay, here we go. All right, Fred, what do you got here? Many adventures were high PC mortality back in the days of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Exactly, that's right. Because they were structured for a much more advanced play. Whereas if you look at something like basic Dungeons and Dragons, they were designed more for beginner play rather than high-level play. And when I mean high-level play, I don't mean high-level character level. I mean high-level as in player skill level. That's the difference. Yeah, there was a real chance of PCs dying every combat. Exactly. Save or die. Or save or suck and die. These were the days of high adventure. Yeah, they certainly were. Okay, and that's right, Fred. Fred makes a good point too. Poison was often save or die, or damage over time, with save only halving the damage, and you saved every round, which means that very shortly you were probably dead. Anyway, Fred Hubber. Dex save or die traps with the heavy armor guys at a penalty on the save. So I want to talk more about traps at some other point, and I think that conversation may occur in my own videos, but I'm hoping that Wally will jump in on this because I know Wally's had a lot of experience with the game. Wally DM, that's who I'm talking about, by the way. Go check out his channel. He's got a video with me being interviewed, by the way. Raphael, so Curse of Strahd is an anti-murder hobo campaign. It is very much an anti-murder hobo campaign. If you walk in with a whole bunch of players who want to be murder hobos, they're going to get completely trounced. Yeah. Murder hobos used to die fast. Yes, exactly. We'd have was it 3 PCs seeing their faces on the wanted posters, and then they started getting attacked by bounty hunters. Yeah, Fred still does this. Okay, good to know, mate. Good to know. All right. Anything happening is anti-murder hobo. Any thinking is anti-murder hobo. That's right, Matt. You're quite right. Yeah. Yeah, if you've got an adventure which requires you to make careful decisions, and the Curse of Strahd is kind of like that, then yes, it will be a problem if you just jump into it. Hey, for those of you who don't know, D&D Homebrew is in the house. He has a YouTube channel making, I have to say, I think some of the best content I've seen in a long time. Considering most YouTube channels make pretty, what's the story, bland material, his stuff is really, really good. I've been enjoying watching it, and I think you will find it useful too. All right, let's keep going. I've done the plug, mate. I've done the plug. Matt, F. Hubber, I remember doing that. They always got the sheriff and their deputies. Yes, that's right. The posse came out, and you're on the run. That's right. You're on the run, absolutely. All right. So what's that, Fred? When I couldn't find a game to play. Now, if you have questions about the Curse of Strahd or need help, this is the time to ask those questions, okay? Where are we doing? When I couldn't find a game to play in, I made my best 3 PCs into the bounty hunters. Love it. I think that's hilarious. Joseph, what do you got here, Joseph? I'm running Tomb of Annihilation, you need a guide for the jungle, else it's a death trap. Yeah, the jungle is a death trap, but the tombs are a death trap as well. If you haven't got that far, it's going to get worse. When I read the adventure, the Tomb of Annihilation, I made an assessment and realized that I didn't have anybody who would find this adventure fun. That I was at high risk of my players rebelling and a sheer mutiny occurring. So I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Then again, I would never run the original Tomb of Horrors either, for a totally different reason. It would take an entire video to explain why I think the Tomb of Horrors is not an adventure you want to run for your players. Okay, Christian, what do you got here? Strahd's been through this cycle 100 times. Yes, he has. He enjoys the game just as much as getting Irena. yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is the hard factor. You don't want to try to drive it down your player's throat, though. As the dungeon master, it's all right to know that, and the players have no knowledge of it. What do you got here, Matt? Wish they would make a serious and most of all good D&D movie. Okay, I would pay to watch Curse of Strahd on the big screen. Yeah, but see, the Curse of Strahd is really just a reimagining of Dracula, as far as I'm concerned. It is not original, so if you want to go and watch a movie on the Curse of Strahd, you watch Dracula. And that's a pretty good representation of the story, as far as I'm concerned. And considering the Curse of Strahd is a Dungeons & Dragons adventure, and Ravenloft is a Dungeons & Dragons adventure, all of those adventures look different. I could tell you 2 different outcomes to Ravenloft and the Curse of Strahd. I could tell you. So they're never the same. What do you got here, Christian? What would you do with the 3rd wine gem? Any good ideas? Okay. Here we go, Christian. I knew that some of this stuff would start to strike up interest. If I get 3 people who want me to talk about the 3rd magic gem in the Wizard of Wines section of the adventure, I'll make a specific video on it. I hinted that Strahd knows the location. I have an idea, but I don't think that people would necessarily like that idea. So I think an options video on that. So I'm writing down the third magic gem seed. If I get 2 more people who want that content, I'll make the video. Okay? Right now, Chris Perkins deliberately did this. This is why I said it was done by design. He did that so that the dungeon master would have to create some sort of campaign reason for trying to track down the third gemstone and then have to build the story around that. But he doesn't actually state that in the book. It would have been nice, rather than having to ask him on Twitter what was going on, that he actually stated in the adventure the third gemstone's location is unknown and dungeon masters are welcome to make a campaign or story around that. So that's my answer to that, Joseph, as it happens. My advice to you is don't worry about the third gemstone. Frankly, I think that's the easiest way to go, but if you want me to do something with it, we'll do something. Is it not Joseph? Oh, Christian, not Joseph. So I've got 1 tick beside that particular topic. But my advice is what I said, is I think you should just don't worry about the seed. Joseph, like I like running the Death House, I can see why it's pointless at times. Okay, so the Death House, people complain about the Death House not being tied to the Curse of Strahd. Actually, the Death House is tied to the Curse of Strahd. And Strahd's involvement with the family who used to live there is actually quite involved. The only thing is that it's not necessarily spelled out in a lot of detail. You have to read between the lines. The Death House is a good indication of what happens when the world that you are in is totally twisted. We've got twisted individuals, we've got twisted monsters, but even the environment is starting to be twisted by Strahd's involvement in it and the sort of nasty spirits that reside within it. So the Death House actually has a purpose. It is actually not pointless, but I think a lot of people assume that it is a pointless exercise, but it's not. Maybe that is a topic for discussion. Who knows? We'll see. Joseph, anyway, as well as that, I find you can run the game at the west of the map. Yep, away from the castle. Yep, and it helps slow. Yeah, it can. There are some locations to the west that are very dangerous and deadly. This has been advised by a couple of people. You could go for the other side, but frankly, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You've got to understand that the Amber Temple is near the west, and even though you've got the Wizard of Wine's location, if they start dealing with Baba Yaga too soon, that could be very, very nasty. Okay, Baba Yaga is not a pushover. So, but yes, you could start it from different locations. It doesn't have to be from the east side, could be from the west side. Okay, just drinking water and we keep working my way through. I think I'm almost to the bottom. If I get to the bottom of the live chat and we've got no more questions, then I'm leaving. And as I said, first possible topic to be talked about, the third gemstone. I need 2 more people to say yes, otherwise I don't do it. What else you got here? Okay, Oscar. Make the players start at level 3 with full hit dice. Yeah, hit dice. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. See, Oscar's suggesting what is already in the adventure, which is that you start at a higher level. You don't start at level 1, you start at level 3. And that will make a big difference. Level 3 players will find their characters certainly are more capable of surviving. If they feel that that's an issue. And Oscar, It's me that needs to thank you, because I knew you were going to reinforce what I was going to say to a large degree. Oscar loves this adventure. I did learn a lot with my mistakes. Now I know better. Yeah, it is. It's one of those things that pulls out everything, doesn't it? It really does. Okay, Carlos. Hello. I had 2 questions. Okay, first question is who should run the allies? All right, that's a good question. Who should run the allies that the players have? I'm actually going to put that down. If I get enough people who say I will do because I can only give you the short answer. I ran the allies for my players. And as soon as the allies became... that's only because I'm experienced and I could handle it. If I was a newer dungeon master, I would probably fall apart and have problems. And the reason I ran the character or the ally is when they had one ally, it was easy enough to do. And the allies that they come across, some of them are quite powerful and require a bit of knowledge. But if they had more than one ally, I would start dumping those allies onto some of the players, just to make my life easier. Okay, so there are 2 answers to that. Can be the players, can be the dungeon master. And it really depends on your level of skill, Carlos, as a dungeon master in terms of running the allies. I ran the allies with the intention that they try to live, whereas I know that some players will run the allies with the intention they don't care. That's the only difference to that question that I can think of. So who should control allies? And if you want a longer answer, I require somebody to say something. Okay, second question. My party is at Kresik, okay, fighting the abbot. Oh, okay. They randomly decided to attack him. What a seriously bad idea that was. Okay, so what's the question then? You've explained the situation, but I don't have a question. I'm getting down to it. I can see it's coming. All right. Christian, last question. How would you handle PC death? Any good ideas besides just them rolling up a new character? Okay, so Christian, I did a video on how to deal with character death in the Curse of Strahd already. I talked about dark gifts, which were first sort of hinted at during the Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League organised play. That's one way of dealing with it. I would often deal with character death in multiple ways, where I think the thing that I did in terms of character death is I said to my players, look, I know this adventure is deadly. I want you to know that your character may well die. In fact, it's quite likely. But if your character dies, for me, because I do not want a revolving roster of characters in the adventure, I want you to continue to play that character even if the character dies. That confused my players completely. And I said, you don't need to worry about how that works out. That's my problem. So I had some of my players wound up with a character who was a ghost, or found themselves inside the body of a young boy or girl, or an old man or a young man. They could never escape. So the soul of their character could never escape Barovia because of the mist. And so, although death was initially the first fear they might have, the next fear that the players had was what the heck would happen to their character when their character died. Because Fred would come up with some really, really sick thing that they had to deal with. And I always would explain to them that eventually they could contend with that issue. Removing curses like dark gifts with the remove curse spell could be done. But I would often state things, if they started to turn to a werewolf or a vampire, I would give them benefits that made them think they should keep it. And then I would start rolling secretly so they would lose control of their character and attack the party. So eventually the party would apply pressure and wind up removing the curses from them and the dark gifts, because they would cause so much bedlam. So there are lots of different ways. That video I did on dark gifts and character death for the Curse of Strahd is the video you want to go and check out, by the way. All right. Carlos, what do you got here? So now they are surrounded by golems in the abbot. Yeah, one PC on the verge of dying, the rest close enough to dying. How should I handle that situation? Well, Carlos, I'm going to tell you how I would do it. But Carlos, it also depends on the types of players you have. If you have experienced players who can deal with character death, then just do it. If they're going to die, they're going to die. Okay? It's not the end of the campaign. If you go and watch that video on how to deal with character death, that'll give you a lot of different ways of figuring out how the character continues on their story. I even had one character who wound up becoming a revenant near the end of the campaign, and their target was Strahd, which actually helped me quite a lot. They thought they had finally found that ultimate way of tracking Strahd and defeating him, because one of them was a revenant. But once the revenant defeats Strahd, they are no more. So there are consequences for all these benefits and the things that you do with your character. I think even one character wound up as a big pile of, it was like a poo monster, which was probably the least favourite of all of them that I did. Okay, anyway, so that's what I would do if I have experienced players. If you have new players, you may want to sort of allow them, if they want to escape, an escape route. Okay, they can come back and deal with it later on. Okay, they do not need to necessarily be butchered. The problem is new players won't understand the concept and when they should have fled or retreated, so it will take them a bit of practice. Redwater, how's it going? You're welcome for the shout out, by the way, D&D Homebrew. Right, Oscar, what does Oscar think here? I think, 1, do not give magic items at the start. Give just stick with the module. Okay, yep, I got it. 2, be more descriptive in each scene. Yes, descriptions are good. Pausing is good too. You do not need to rattle that out too quickly. You know, go slow. Use the dark gifts when PCs die. So here we go. Oscar has run this adventure so many times, and I tell you, if he's telling you to use the dark gifts, not all of those dark gifts are great. If you lose your eyes and they melt away, and you've got blind vision for 30 feet, and you are a character who uses a ranged weapon, that sucks. Okay, that means that having somebody who can cast something like Remove Curse is going to be necessary, because you won't be able to do the things you were able to do before. But it's not something that they need to be penalised by indefinitely. They just need to go and find the solution, which is either find a cleric or have a cleric in the party. That's probably one of the classes you really want to have in the group, is a cleric, just because of all of the healing they can do, remove curse, and raising people from being dead. Revivify and raise dead. Reincarnate's all right, but raise dead probably better. Okay, keep going. Let's keep going. Rich Turb, what do you got here? You said that Curse of Strahd shouldn't be run by new DMs. Yes. Is there other adventures you'd recommend? Yes, I would. I would recommend Lost Mine of Phandelver. Some parts of Dragon of Icespire Peak, but not all of them, because some of them are just way too hard. There are some of them are just way too hard. There's a lot of adventures in the Kobold Press prepared. It's like a dozen short adventures, about a page or 2 pages long, that you could string together. There's the Book of Lairs, which has a series of adventures you could string together. I think you would be better off to go and run something like the Forge of Fury from Tales from the Yawning Portal. Would probably be a better choice than trying to go for something like the Curse of Strahd as a beginner dungeon master. Now, the Forge of Fury may actually make quite a lot of sense for those of you who are wondering. That adventure is almost in line with the power level that the players would be when you start off. It's an older dungeon, but it's been remade for Dungeons & Dragons 5e in the Yawning Portal adventure book. So Forge of Fury would be my advice if you're going to do it that way. But yes, those would be my picks. All right, so, and I did a video on what are good adventures to run for beginners. So there's a video that says beginner adventures for Dungeons & Dragons 5e, because that was a question that somebody put forward to me quite a long time ago, and I tried to answer that as best I could, and I give you a whole bunch of really good options, some of which I've already spoken about, but there are more there. Okay. Right, let's keep going. Matt. No, past Matt. Matt's just saying he's subscribed to that channel. All right, Oscar. Okay, number 4. Oscar's Pearl of Wisdom. Have you random encounters prepared? Either roll for them or choose your... yeah. So, random encounters help level up your characters before they get to the really dangerous locations. Now, random encounters don't necessarily have to be a fight. A random encounter could be just a problem they need to solve, okay? And you assign some XP or experience points to it, or you assign a milestone to it. So that's actually a really good way of dealing with them not being strong enough to deal with the adventure by giving them random encounters. What I like more with random encounters is random encounters aren't so random in that you don't necessarily roll for them. You can roll for them, or you can select the ones that you think will make the most sense out of your chart for the location they are currently in. I feel like that's actually a much better option than just rolling the dice. But a couple of different ways you can do it. All right, I'm working my way through here. We're almost up to an hour, and I feel like I must be close to the bottom. I'm getting there. Well, okay, Sam, what do you got here? Unrelated question. Is something with incorporeal movement, like the Banshee, still affected by the monk's fist of unbroken air? Seems odd to move through walls, but gets hurt by an air burst. What do I think? I would have to look at it in detail. Off the top of my head, I'm not too sure, so I can't really answer that question. I do know that incorporeal movement does essentially mean that you know, physical contact isn't going to really do very much. But a monk is very odd in how it works. They work at a sort of spiritual level later on as you level them up, not just at a physical level. So it can change things a bit. So I probably can't answer that question. All right. Right, here we go. Oscar's got here, number 5, prepare all the combat tables. Yes, makes sense to me. 6, ask the players if they want group initiative or individual, then make them roll initiative before starting the game. Yeah, so I do initiative in a bit of an odd way. I get them to roll initiative before the game session starts, and then I have it all lined up so I don't have to sort of work my way through that. That's just to speed things up. It's a good way of doing it. You do that with any adventure. Okay, what else? Raphael, Tomb of Horrors got a 5e revamp. Yes, it did. From the Tales from the Yawning Portal. Yes, it did. It did get a revamp. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. You guys would have to apply a lot of pressure to get me to actually make a video on that one, and why, but it can be done given enough people say something. Okay, D&D Homebrew. Wasn't the Death House designed as a mini adventure for low-level players? Yes, it is. It is supposedly designed as, but the thing is, it's also designed to be incredibly brutal. No, you are not remembering that wrong at all. It's designed for levels 1 to 5, 1 to 3, but you know, playing at level 1 in the Death House is rough, and you get your level 3. You go to level 3 once you complete the Death House and you escape it. So it's not like you become level 3 while you're in the Death House. The idea behind Death House is you avoid combat at all costs. That's the learning lesson behind Death House, which of course is going to be completely counter to most players' understanding of Dungeons and Dragons. Jared has voted second vote for the 3rd gemstone video for the Wizard of Wands. Okay, we require a 3rd vote for that to happen. And moving along. Raphael, which adventure would you suggest after Lost Mod and Fandelver? Out of the Abyss, Descent into Avernus, or Tyranny of Dragons. I wouldn't touch Tyranny of Dragons with a 10-foot pole. It's a terrible adventure. Descent into Avernus, I don't have enough experience with it. I'm not very fond of it myself. Out of the Abyss, I'm not very fond of either. I did a video on what's the next adventure after the Lost Mine of Phandelver. And frankly, I feel like the best adventure... For me, I feel like the Lost Mine of Phandelver is best if it comes to a natural end at level 5 and you start a new campaign. You don't have to start at level 1. You could start at level 5, but you start a new campaign. If you want to go from Lost Mine of Phandelver to another campaign, I still feel like the Forge of Fury from Tales from the Yawning Portal is a better option. But if you only have the Tyranny of Dragons books and the Descent into Avernus and Out of the Abyss, then if they're about level 5 and you're playing in the Tyranny of Dragons, I would be tempted to run the very first and second episode of the Tyranny of Dragons, and then have a montage where they have to chase down the sodding treasure and the cult, and then go straight into the very last episode, which is Skyreach Castle. Because I had players who finished up Hoard of the Dragon Queen at level 5 and 6. So that means the first 2 episodes they would probably find a bit easier, which is probably not a bad idea, and then you go straight into the last episode, which is the conclusion, and you're done. And you skip the middle, which is usually the worst bit. From about episode 4 through to episode 7, it's a drag. So if you're wanting those choices, that's how I would probably do it. And frankly, if you're going to run the Hoard of the Dragon Queen, that's probably how I would do it too, is just go level 1, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, level up, Pam, go straight into the last episode and be done with it. Have a montage in there somewhere. Okay, Joseph. Should I have someone run Strahd as a character? No, I wouldn't. If you are dungeon mastering, I would certainly control Strahd yourself as the dungeon master. I would not let a player do that. That would be a bad idea. Jared, what do you got here? I connect Lady Fiona Watch's cults as a continuation of the Jurist cult of the Death House. Yes, yeah, certainly could be. It's a good idea, Jared. There are lots of cults that exist within Barovia. You just got to dig deep enough to find them. Right, Christian, what do you got here? Cool, I'll check out that video on Dark Powers. Yes, that's the one, Dark Gifts, Dark Powers. But I think it's Dark Gifts and Death. Oscar, my question is for you, sir. Okay, all right, I'm ready. If you are DMing for hire this module, how you run the show, I definitely would explain to them the nature of this module. I'm new as a DM for hire. Okay, I see what you're doing. I'm saying, Oscar. Oscar, you know the Curse of Strahd better than anybody that I know of currently. Okay, because you've ran it so many times. My advice to you is you need to make sure that they are aware that it's not vanilla Dungeons and Dragons. If they are new to the game, it's probably not the right adventure for them. I don't know, it's like a moth to a flame. It's like dungeon masters and players who are new get drawn towards Curse of Strahd, and then they get burnt up in the mess, not realizing that they are taking themselves to their ultimate destruction as they get. Yeah, it's a rough deal. So personally, I would make it clear that this is not vanilla. They need to be very careful. It's a very deadly adventure. The chances are that characters will die and whole parties can be decimated. So they understand the idea that sometimes they should just run away or not get involved until later on. My own players, when they ran through the Curse of Strahd, and I don't know if that was the same case for you, because I made that clear and because I ran Death House and I made it brutal, and they only got out by the skin of their teeth, with some characters who were unconscious. I think there was one character who died and wound up with a dark gift, and it wasn't the dark gift they were hoping for. As a result of that, they realised that I was not kidding, and when they came back and found the death house had rebuilt itself because they had tried to burn it down, they were like, oh, things really don't work the same here as what we're used to at all. And I said, yeah, you're right. So they went and explored the entire map of Barovia before they ever went anywhere near Castle Ravenloft, because I made it abundantly clear that there was no doubt that there would be some very nasty things they would come across. And there were many times that happened for them. And, you know, the bone grinder, those hags are bad news. The Amber Temple, pretty rough. It's pretty rough. And it just goes on and on and on and on. So, yeah. That would be my advice. I like Carlos. Thank you so much for your insight. I really appreciate it. No problems, man. No problems. We'll see you in another month on the same topic if need be, if you're still needing help. Raphael, new D&D players don't understand retreating because most RPGs don't involve employing it unless it's the players accidentally fighting a high-level boss. Yeah, exactly. That's part of the problem, is that people are usually used to playing video games where you didn't, you know, the game was sort of set out to be where you would collect enough experience points and be strong enough to deal with the boss fight. But it doesn't work that way here. You really have to play it very differently. Hank Hill. Hi, Hank. It is Hank Hill. I need to know more about Hank Hill. Who is Hank Hill? Carlos. Oh, now that I think of it. Milestones or XP for progression in Curse of Strahd. You want milestones video? Is that what you're trying to say? Well, I need a few people to say milestones in the Curse of Strahd, which frankly would be extremely difficult. It would be more a video on what sort of level should people be for certain locations. So milestones in Curse of Strahd. I haven't got a third vote for a video on the third magic gem seed for the Wizard of Wine, so it looks like that won't be happening. What else we got here? What? Strahd peeled the party monk like a tin can. Yeah, that can happen. Yeah, so Strahd has wives that can play a big part in the adventure as well. Absolutely. Okay, Raphael. Yeah, thanks for the tips. Our group does have Yawning Portal and Salt Marsh also. It has Tomb of Annihilation, but you said it is hard for beginners. Yes, I would not throw anybody near the Tomb of Annihilation. It's too much of the old style Dungeons and Dragons built into it. So I didn't mention it's in their list. Okay. TOD is likely next. Yeah. So, you know. So you've got some options there. So you should be fine. I think we've covered that. Oops. I'll go ahead and say the gem as well. All right. So there's 3 people. Looks like the gemstone's going to have a video of a whole bunch of options for you. Well done. Would love your insight as to when and how often to expose Strahd to the party. Justin, it's a good question. I would say I'm going to answer the question pretty quickly because I feel like that's going to come out eventually. I'm sure that I'll wind up doing some videos with other dungeon masters, where you can see how we did things slightly differently. I would expose the players to Strahd often, but never as a combat situation. I would always present Strahd more as a individual who is interested in knowing more about them. And he will throw things in front of them, but will never admit that he did so until they really annoy him. And I think it's only when the players started to form alliances with his arch enemies and collect certain items that he really got annoyed with them. That I had them actually have to deal with a battle with him. And that did not go well the first time round. And he did not necessarily get up in their face. He had a lot of minions with him. And yeah, I believe I had Strahd just fireball the cabin they were trying to hide in while it was being inundated by zombies. And they were terrified. And then Strahd just left. And they're like, oh, I thought it was all over. So yes, as often as you possibly can, but not necessarily combat. Okay, what else you got here? You're welcome, Matt. Oscar, homebrew class for elves. Arcane warrior using full plate, and the armor makes XD6 force damage and goes up on more level progress. I don't know what you're saying, Oscar. I'm completely confused. I'm doing milestones. Would love to know your thoughts on it versus XP. Okay, Jared. All right. I've seen that. I don't know that I'll necessarily make a video on that. I kind of need enough different people who really want that for it to happen. But I believe Carlos has mentioned it. So that's you and Carlos. So that's 2. 1, 2. Okay. And you're welcome, Justin, by the way. What do you think about the homebrew class idea in this module? I couldn't say, Oscar. I've got no idea. I'd need to have more information. Best place to put that sort of stuff up is on my How to D&D Facebook group, so that I can sort of see it rather than try to figure out what's going on in a quick comment in a live chat. Christian, I'd be interested in milestone. Okay, looks like milestones is happening as well. Maybe some good points on what levels would be good to throw at Strahd combat bosses encounters in it. Yep. Okay. All right. So when to throw Strahd at party. And then I guess how to throw, some options, right? How to throw Strahd or present Strahd to party. Okay. Think it would be cool to have Strahd flex his muscle in front of the players at lower levels to build tension for the final boss fight. Trust me, you won't need to do very much of that. You can, and at low level, players usually know their characters are pretty squishy anyway, and they're dealing with a vampire. What's that, Carlos? Good job, Jared and Christian. Thanks for the upvote of Milestones video. Okay, all right, I'm going to get going. I need to go and sort out some food. Hopefully I've covered enough of this as I possibly can. So that means at some point I'll be covering the 3rd Magic Gem Seed and Milestones in the Curse of Strahd. I don't know when, but in any case, no matter what, there will be at the very least, at the end of next month, a Q&A for the Curse of Strahd. And we'll keep doing that until we no longer need to do them. I think that's the easiest way to deal with that. Yeehaw. So, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the early morning, make sure to look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Thank you so much for coming. And be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.